Booklovers, welcome back to my channel. I've been wanting to do another tier ranking list video because I really like doing them, so I decided to do one for all the book series that I read last year back in 2021. Technically though, I'm only going to be ranking all the series that I either completed or read at least half of last year. It's still going to be a lot of series though. I counted them and it's 61 series, and some of these are going to be ongoing series, so they're not completed yet, but I managed to catch up on the series, or at least read a majority of the books in the series. I do want to say I probably read and completed over half of these, so 30 or 40 series I totally completed. So that's something, right? But there are some series that I really wanted to talk about and include here, so I'm just kind of cheating and including the series that I half read. Here is my tier ranking template. I have S tier at the top. This is a series that I would reread a million times. A tier, I loved it, it was so good. B tier, I liked it. C tier, it was an okay series. D, forgettable, wouldn't really think about it again. And F tier, a series that I would not recommend. I honestly am not too sure I'm gonna have anything for F tier, just because if I don't like a book in a series, I probably wouldn't continue reading it, right? I'm not really much of a hate reader. I have way too many books to get to, and I don't have time to not enjoy a book. So let's scroll down, and here are my 61 different series that I'm gonna be ranking. I read so many freaking books last year, and like I said earlier, I read at least half of these. Like, I completed at least half of these series, but some of them are just super short series anyway, like just 2 books, but I'm counting it. I've got a good mix of historicals, paranormals, dark romances, reverse harem. So let's start tier ranking. I'm just gonna go in the order that these covers are in. They kind of randomized when I uploaded everything. So first up is Julia Quinn, her Belwell-Stokes series. It's a 3-book series and I read all of them. This one is kind of hard because I absolutely hated this first book, The Secret Diaries of Miss Miranda Cheever. It was freaking awful. So I'm kind of tempted to put it at D. Not quite F, because I did at least like books 2 and 3 a little better, but not by that much either. I'm just gonna leave Belwell-Stokes in D, because honestly, I don't really remember anything besides that I hated Secret Diaries. Another Julia Quinn is her Linden Sisters series. It's a 2-book series. This one was a good series. I at least liked it for sure. I gave both of them 4 stars. It was one of Julia Quinn's better series, or at least a series where each book was consistent for me, because for a lot of her series, I will love one of the books, but then hate another one, so it's kind of hard to base my rating and ranking off of that. But for her Linden Sisters series, I definitely liked it, so I'm putting it in B tier. And then we have a mafia romance series. This is the Hitman series by Jen Frederick. This one I was a little disappointed by because I really liked book 1, Last Hit, but all the rest of the series, it's a 4-book series, I wasn't a huge fan of. Books 2 through 4 were all just okay for me, so I'm just gonna say the whole series was average, even though I did really like Last Hit. Even though it seems like a lot of people didn't like this one compared to the other books in the series. We just have an obsessed alpha hero, so I was totally into it. And then this one is a romantic suspense series. It's the If You Can series by Christina C. Jones. The series was kind of different just because, I mean, each book does focus on a different couple, but it felt like there was one main couple that was featured throughout the series, and then the 2 other couples, they kind of were in the background. And also the suspense in the series was definitely at the forefront. It at times overshadowed the romance for me, which is why I can't really give it higher than C tier. And then we have the Blindfold Club series by Nikki Sloane. If you know me, you know how much I adore Nikki Sloane, but her Blindfold Club series is not my favorite. So as much as I would love to give it a higher rating or higher ranking, it was such an okay series for me. I think I gave every single book that I read 3 stars. This one is 3 Hard Lessons, which is book 2 in the series, because I already read book 1 and I decided to continue with the series. More Julia Quinn because I decided to read her entire backlist for a video. This is the Bridgerton spin-off. It's the Rokesby series, and book 1 is Because of Miss Bridgerton. It's about the generation right before the Bridgerton series. It's kind of in between B and C tier because there were better ones in the series that I really enjoyed, but then some other very average ones. I read all 4 of them last year, and my favorite is definitely the amnesia one. The hero gets amnesia and the heroine pretends to be his wife. Next is the Kingmaker Chronicle series by Amanda Boucher. This is a 3-book series. It's a trilogy, although there are going to be more books in the series, but about different couples. But I read the first 2 books in the trilogy that's out so far, and I really liked it. I wish I could put it in A tier because book 1 was so good. I loved A Promise of Fire, but then book 2 kind of brought the series down for me because the heroine got really frustrating because she kept getting everyone hurt. So book 1 was amazing, book 2 was okay, so I'm gonna average it out to B tier for now. We'll see how I feel once I read the final book. Then we have another historical romance series. It's the Wedded by Scandal series by Stacey Reed. The series was so good. I had an amazing time reading all 4 books. This first one was Accidentally Compromising the Duke, which was such a great start to the series. I also read the Westmoreland series, The Westmoreland Saga by Judith McNaught. I read the first 2 books. There is a 3rd and a novella. I thought they were amazing. I freaking loved Winnie My Love. I also loved A Kingdom of Dreams, just not quite as much, even though a lot of people probably think the opposite, but they were both amazing books. A Kingdom of Dreams is like the prequel to Winnie My Love, even though I released after, but it's about like the medieval Westmorelands, whereas Winnie My Love is about the Regency Westmorelands. I also read the Love After series by Alexandria House. It's a 3-book series about 3 best friends who fall in love, and sadly it's not one of her best series for me. It was her debut series, I believe, the first books that she ever released. It wasn't bad, but it was a very okay series for me. I gave all of them around 3 stars. Book 3 was especially messy. I've definitely read better from Alexandria House, so I'm putting it in C tier. The first reverse harem on this list is the Rock Hard Beautiful series by C.M. Stunek. This is a rock star reverse harem romance where all the guys are part of the same band. It was my first time reading C.M. Stunek, and I liked book 1, but then books 2 and 3 felt dragged out and unnecessary. I personally felt like the series could have been just 2 books because books 2 and 3 just rehash the same thing over and over. So even though it started off strong with groupie book 1, it kind of left me on a bit of a downer note by the end of the series, so I'll put it in C tier. I read another historical romance series. I read 2 of the books in this 3-book series. It's the 400 series by Joanna Shupe, and I definitely like this series. Joanna Shupe is always really enjoyable for me, so that's an easy B tier. I finally finished up the Green Creek series by TJ Klune, which is his paranormal romance series, Wolf Shifters, and if you know me, you know how much I freaking love TJ Klune, so this one is an S tier. I love this series. It's one of my favorites paranormal romance series. I read book 1 a couple years ago. I finished up the series and oh my gosh, it was such an emotional journey. If you watched my best of 2021 video, you might have seen how much I loved the Dark Side series by Christy Cunning. So this one definitely going in S tier. It's one of my favorite reverse harem romances. It's paranormal. There's tons of action. The romance is slow burn. It's hilarious and I just loved it. This one is Elizabeth Hoyt's Grey Court series. It's her newest historical romance series. There's only 2 books out so far, but I did read them last year and I'm kind of torn between B tier and C tier because they were good. I did like them, but they are a little long. They were both close to 500 pages and it definitely felt like 500 pages, but I just love the tropes in both of them. This first one is enemies to lovers, but they used to be childhood friends, and then book 2, which I like slightly more, that one is got a forced marriage and the hero has been in love with the heroine since forever. I'll just put it in B tier because I did really enjoy them. And then we have the Laird's Fiancé series by Julie Garwood. This series was another favorite. I don't know if I would put it in S tier though, even though I did technically reread The Bride. I love The Wedding. It's one of my favorites from last year. but I'll just put it in A tier for now. And then we have the Game Changer series by Rachel Reed. This is her hockey romance series, sports romance series, and I listened to them in audio and they were so much fun. I really like the books, although there are some better ones in the series, like the first 2 books are my favorite. I read all 5 books that are currently out, but there is going to be a 6th coming up. It's going to be a sequel to The Couple from book 2, and I know a lot of people are excited about it. I read another Nikki Sloane series, her Nashville Neighborhood series, which is kind of her taboo series. The first 2 books are age gap. Definitely putting this one in A tier because books 1 and 2 were so hot and so fun. There are 3 books out so far. I don't know if she's going to continue writing them. I finished up the Night Rebel series by Janine Frost. This is her paranormal romance series, vampires. It's a spin-off of the Night Huntress and Night Prince series, and I read books 2 and 3, and I don't think there's going to be any more books after that. It kind of seemed like a pretty definitive if abrupt ending. I am kind of sad about this one because I loved the first 2 books, but then book 3 was pretty disappointing. It was so anticlimactic to me, so it could have been so close to A tier, but I have to put it in B tier. This one is the Jerk Duet series by Max Monroe. I was not that impressed by this one, so this one is going in D tier. I didn't really like the main characters here, or more like I just didn't really connect with them, so I didn't really connect with the romance. I almost finished the Mayhem and Mayfair series by Grace Calloway. This is a 4-book series, and I read the first 3 books. It's a very steamy historical romance series. I'm putting it in B tier. Book 1 was my least favorite, but the more I read, the more I liked the series. Another historical romance series that I read the first 2 books in the Union of the Rake series by Eva Lee. It's a 3-book series. I still need to read book 3, but it was okay so far from what I read. The first 2 books, nothing too impressive, even though I did want to love them more because they sounded so good, but I just sadly never really fell that in love with the writing or the characters. The Devil's Playground series by Ashley Jade. It's a bit of a dark romance, romantic suspense. It's a 2-book series. I liked it, kind of. It was both okay, but then I liked it at the same time. I don't know if I should put it in B tier or C tier because I was not that impressed by like the twists and turns. Book 1 was okay for me. I did like book 2 a lot more, but I don't know. It just wasn't quite as good as I was hoping it would be, so I'll just stick it in C tier. This next series I kind of debated leaving off because I only read 3 of these 7 books, but I felt like 3 books was at least enough to get a feel for the series, and it was okay. The only good one is Gluttony, book 5. This is the one that I started with. I read 5 through 7, and Gluttony was surprisingly really good. It's by Kay Webster. Almost each book is by a different author, and each hero is like an embodiment of one of the 7 sins. If I were to just rate Gluttony, it would be A tier because it was really good. But then books 6 and 7 were so disappointing compared to it, so it really brought the series down. And now for my favorite Nikki Sloane series, I kind of have to put this one in S tier just because I put the Nashville Neighborhood series in A tier, and I definitely liked the Filthy Rich American series more than Nashville Neighborhood. There are 5 books in the series. Book 4 is my favorite, but they're all so good. The first 3 books are about one couple, and then books 4 and 5 are about 2 different couples. I also read the Dating series by Monica Murphy. It's a rom-com-y kind of series. There's 7 books and I read 6 of them last year. They were really good in audio. I really liked them. They're nothing mind-blowing or anything, but they were so much fun to read. It's got a lot of fun classic tropes like fake dating, enemies to lovers, brother's best friend. So I'm putting them in B tier. It's a super light and fluffy series. If you're in the mood for something really light, I highly recommend them. And then we have the Madison Kate series by Tate James. This one was such a good series. I'm so glad my library got the audiobooks because I probably never would have tried them out otherwise. So I'm putting them in A tier. It was so freaking good. The first 2 books I listened to in audio, and then I got so impatient for my library to get the rest of the series that I ended up reading books 3 and 4. I was that addicted. It's definitely one of the better reverse harem romances that I read last year. This one is a sci-fi alien romance series. It's the Galactic Love series by Anne Aguirre. I like the first 2 books. I just found out that a third book recently released, so I need to get on that. The heroes are very, very alien, almost monstery, but it's surprisingly really fluffy for an alien romance. Like, these heroes are so sweet. I read another Monica Murphy series. This is the Callahan series, which is a spin-off of one of her new adult romances, Drew and Fable. This is the second generation series about their kids, and I didn't really love them. They were kind of forgettable. I mean, I really tried, but I think the whole high school thing, it's just not for me anymore, so I'll put that in D tier. This next series is the Seduced by series by Roxy Rivera. It's a 4-book series, well, 4 novella series, and I was in the mood for something really short but still steamy, and this one delivered. I read books 3 and 4 because the first 2 books were about a different couple and I was not really in the mood for them. 3 and 4 are about a loan shark hero and a heroine who needs to borrow money from him. It was exactly what I was in the mood for, exactly what I wanted, so I loved it. I also realize I'm kind of running out of space. I've kind of just forgotten about this F tier, but I'll try to put one thing in there, maybe. The Trouble with Hating You series by Sajni Patel was such a good series. Definitely A tier. I loved both of them, but book 2 is my favorite so far. Each of them can be read as standalones. There's only 2 books out so far. The Trouble with Hating You, that was the author's debut, and I was very, very impressed. I also read the Spoiler Alert series by Olivia Dade. I was kind of disappointed by this one because I love the sound of it, but I just never really connected with the main characters. There's 2 books out so far. There is supposed to be a third one. The first 2 are Hollywood romances. I don't know if it's gonna continue with the whole Hollywood thing, but maybe. The Written in the Stars series was so much fun. I read the first 2 books. Book 3 just came out, but I adore them. I'll put them in A tier. Book 1 is an FF romance. It's got fake dating, and then book 2 is friends to lovers, and it was freaking adorable. Alright, this series, the Miles High Club series by TL Swan, I struggled with so much. I didn't hate them, but this author's writing for sure is not for me. I don't know if I would put it in F tier. It's not like, you know, they were the worst books ever. I personally would probably never try this author again because I just cannot get into her dialogue. I also don't really want to put it here because I know so many people love her. So many people love this series, and especially book 2, which is the book that I started with. So I'll just stick it in C tier because it was just okay for me. I read more of the Raja series by Sonali Dev. This is a South Asian romance retelling of Jane Austen books, and it was another okay series for me. I never really fell in love with any of them. It almost felt like women's fiction, and I kept just wanting more of the romance in each book. There are 3 books out so far. I read books 2 and 3 last year. There's a 4th one coming later this year. It's based off of Emma. I binged on the If Love series by Anna Huang. She wrote this one before her more popular series that she's currently working on, and I really like them. It's a 4-book series. The first 2 books follow one couple, and then there are 2 more couples in books 3 and 4. It was a really good new adult romance series. There's like second chance romance, enemies to lovers, fake dating. I also read the first 2 books in the Gilded Age Heiresses series by Harper St. George. It's about this group of siblings who come from this wealthy New York family, and their parents want them to marry into English titles. I like this one. I'll put it in B tier. Book 1 was not too bad. I liked it, but then book 2 was a lot better. They go on a road trip together, so there's a lot of good forced proximity. I read this next series during the Olympics because it's a sports romance series, and I was really craving some swimming romances. This is the Kings of the Water series by Jasmine Miller. It's a 4-book series. I read the first 2 books, and they were really fun. I'll put them in B tier just because they were pretty much what I was looking for. Swimming romances, heroes who swam for the Olympics. The first 2 books, I will say though, are pretty baby oriented. Like book 1, there's a surprise pregnancy, and then book 2 is a surprise baby / nanny romance. I read Catherine Moon's books in the Sweet Omegaverse series. There's like 1 or 2 other authors who write in the series, but I only read the Catherine Moon books. I read 3 of them. Lola and the Millionaires, I would have easily put in A tier, but then I really did not like Bad Alpha, which is like book 5 in the series, I think. think, so I kind of have to lower the series rating down to B tier because of Bad Alpha. I had such high hopes for that one because it had an alpha heroine, but I could not feel any chemistry between the main characters there. I tried reading some more Sarah Nye books. I kind of missed her books just because I really enjoyed her earlier new adult sports romances, but her newer stuff has not really worked that well for me. This is for her Trophy Boyfriend series. I think there's 4 books. I read the first 2 and kind of gave up on it, so I think I have to put it in D tier. I read the Filthy Rich series by Angelina M. Lopez. It's a 3-book series and I love them so much. I'm gonna put them in S tier because I really love them. I love the angst and the emotions and the chemistry. She was a new to me author. I never read her before, but then I just became such a huge fan. I ended up reading the Made in Steel series by Ivy Smoke. This is a new adult college romance series. It's romantic suspense. It's got like a bit of a love triangle, actually a love square. I did not love the series though. I got so frustrated. It was still addicting just because I needed to know what was going to happen, but I got so frustrated at the heroine because she kept making the dumbest decisions. I'll put it in F tier for now. I didn't really hate the series, but I definitely would not recommend it either. I read the Hades and Persephone series by Scarlett St. Clair. This is her fantasy romance series and I liked it. I thought it was a pretty fun Hades and Persephone retelling. It has a very modern feel to it. It was really easy to read and I loved Hades' character. Persephone does get frustrating throughout the series, but I kind of understood her at the same time, so I never really hated her character as much as a lot of other people seem to. I read the first 3 books that are out so far. There's supposed to be a 4th one, but it's not out until 2023. I also read the Bloodline Vampire series by Katie Robert. This is her vampire reverse harem paranormal romance series. And even though I really liked book 1, I was so disappointed in the next 2 books. Each book just got worse and worse for me. Kind of felt like the author didn't really know where she was going with the series, or at least was trying to drag out the series so that it would be 3 books, even though she probably could have wrapped it up in 2. So I was left disappointed by the end of this one. I actually just skimmed the 3rd book because I was not feeling it. So D tier for the Bloodline Vampire series. The Cinderella trilogy by Kay Webster was a favorite of mine from last year. I love the Cinderella retelling. It's kinky, it's a little bit dark, more like mafia adjacent, but still such an addicting series. I don't know if I would reread it necessarily, but it was so freaking good. So I'll put it in A tier, which is still pretty high up. I was lucky enough to read the Bellinger Sisters series by Tessa Bailey. This is a series that isn't even complete yet because book 2 is not out until March, but I got an arc, I got to read it early, and had so much fun with the series. I will say I loved book 1. It happened one summer. A little bit more than Hook, Line, and Sinker, but it was still an A tier series. Such good beach reads. It's steamy, it's fun. You've got devoted alpha heroes, which is Tessa Bailey's MO. After loving the Madison Kate series by Tate James, I had to read the spin-off series, the Hades series. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I enjoyed it quite as much as Madison Kate. It's like in between A and B, but I'll put Hades in B just because I feel like Madison Kate was a little bit more memorable, or maybe I just read the Hades series way too fast, but still both of them are amazing reverse harem romances. I love the heroes, I love the heroines, they're both really good. And then for the Twisted series by Anna Huang, this one I really liked book 1 and then was not as impressed with book 2. I'm actually currently reading book 3 right now, which is the one that I was most excited for, but I'll just put it in B tier just because I do like the series overall so far. I read this series for a Mafia romance video. I read the Deception trilogy by Rena Kent. I was really sad about this one because I love the sound of the blurb. It's like a fake marriage kind of romance. The hero is in the Russian mafia, his wife has died, and then the heroine for some reason looks exactly like her, so he forces her to pretend to be his dead wife. It sounded amazing, but the execution was not as good as I wanted it to be. I read the Desolate trilogy. Well, I read the first 2 books in this trilogy, and I'm still waiting on the 3rd book from my library. I don't know why they got the first 2 books and then just forgot about the 3rd, but it was a good series. It's like new adult forbidden romance because the hero, he wants to be a priest, but then he falls in love with the heroine, he has sex with her, and then he's like, wait, maybe the sex thing is actually better than I thought. I read the Soul series by Harley laroux. The first 2 books are the only ones that are out so far, but I am so excited for the 3rd one. I will say though, I'm a little sad I can't put it in A tier because I would just for book 1, but then book 2 was such a disappointment. So sadly, it's going in B tier. I read the Fisherman series, The Fisherman Duet by Julie Ann. This one, it takes like the classic new adult age gap romance, but Julie Ann gives it a twist. I did really enjoy the series. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I definitely liked it, so I'm putting it in B tier. I liked her main characters. I mean, the heroine, she's kind of iffy in the beginning, but she's supposed to be, and I always enjoy Julie Ann's writing. Back to my Julia Quinn historicals. This is one of her 2-book series. It's the Lost Dukes of Wyndham. It's another hard series for me to rate because I loved book 1 and then hated book 2. Book 1 was amazing because of the highwayman hero, but I don't know, I just can't put it in B tier because of book 2. It definitely does not deserve a B tier. Kind of sad, but I'll just put it in C tier. The Splendid trilogy is Julia Quinn's very first series, and it definitely felt like it. I did like book 2 the most, but it wasn't anything amazing. Just because this one is one of Julia Quinn's weaker series, I'll put it in D tier. I also read Lisa Kleypas's very first romance series, her Berkeley Faulkner series. It's a 2-book series. They're both out of print, but I do own the paperbacks. This one is a little hard for me to rate. I surprisingly really like the first book in the series, even though it gets very non-consensual here, but then book 2 was such a disappointment. I did not like the hero here, so I think I have to put this one in C tier. I mainly read them just to get a feel of Lisa Kleypas's, very first romances, how she wrote them, and I appreciated that experience, but it's definitely not one of her best series. Another Julia Quinn 2-book series is the Agents of the Crown series. It's another series where I loved one of the books and then hated another one, so I think I kind of just have to go along with the other series like this and put it in C tier just to average it out. And then the last Julia Quinn series that I need to rank is the Smythe Smith series, which is kind of related to the Bridgertons. The Smythe Smiths were mentioned in the Bridgerton series. Overall, it was just not the best for me. I mean, it's still light and fun and fluffy. It's a 4-book series, and I'm kind of all over the place with all 4 books because I really liked book 2. That one's my favorite. Books 1 and 3 were okay, but then I hated the last book in the series. That book was trash. I think everyone feels this way about the 4th book, so I'm okay saying this, but it was really, really bad. So even though I could put it in B tier, I kind of have to just go with C because of how bad that 4th book was. And then I read the Clair series by Nana Malone. It's a 6-book series about this group of siblings and cousins. It's a sports romance series. Each book is about a different sport, and I kind of just flew by these books because I listened to them in audio. My library got them all, and they're really short, like 5 or 6 hours at the most. They weren't anything that unique though. Like, it was an okay series, but at the same time, it was kind of forgettable because of how short the books were, and there just wasn't enough time to develop more from the characters. Maybe if the books were longer, they probably could have been a little better, but I'll just put them in D tier. I only have 3 more series now. This one is the Rivers Wild series by Dylan Allen. It's a 3-book series about these 2 families, the Rivers and the Wilds, and things get pretty messy between them, mainly because of the parents' generation. But I did like the series overall. I liked how all 3 books kind of intertwined because of the whole family drama. I like the romances. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say I was obsessed, but it was a good series. I liked reading Dylan Allen for the first time, and there's just a lot of good emotion and angst in each book. My second to last series is the Heartache Duet by J. McLean. It's a 2-book series. It's set in high school, but it is more mature. Felt more like new adult than just mature YA. There's a lot more serious topics in this duet too that kind of made it feel more mature. Like the heroine, her mother was a prisoner of war, so they're dealing with her PTSD as a family. The hero is her next door neighbor, who is a total sweetheart. It's a bit of a sports romance too because he is a basketball player. It was just very emotional. It was my first time reading J. McLean, and I really liked her writing style, and it was a good duet, so I'll put it in B tier. And then my final series in this tier ranking list, my final series of 2021, this is the Family series by Katrina Jackson. It's her mafia romance series. There's like
2 full-length books and then 2 novellas. I read the first novella and then the first full-length book. It's got the mafia boss's romance and then 2 members of his mafia family. It's a good mafia romance series, especially if you love them more on the sweeter side. I mean, it's still steamy, but the heroes are just very, very sweet. So this is pretty much how I ranked every series that I read in 2021, at least the ones that I finished and read like a majority of the books. Most of them are in B tier. I mean, I like most of the books that I read because I know what I like. I'm really happy with all my S and A tier books. Highly recommend reading them if you haven't. And then here are the ones that I wasn't too impressed by. This F tier, I kind of forced myself to do it. I would probably just put it in D tier, but I wanted to put at least one book in F.
And that is it for my tier ranking list of all the series that I read last year. If you read any of these series or these authors, let me know your thoughts. Would you rank them the same way that I did? And if you have any ideas or suggestions on what my next tier ranking list video should be, let me know. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!
I'm just gonna start in the order of these covers, which means